The encounter. In a distant future, the Earth was no longer the home it once was. Alien ships filled the sky, casting shadows over the crumbling cities below. Humans lived in fear, trapped under the rule of their alien masters. The once vibrant world now felt dull and lifeless, with people forced into labor and servitude. Among them, Ethan was a fighter, a member of the rebellion seeking to free humanity from its chains. Ethan was tall and strong, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to glow with determination. He had witnessed too much suffering and loss. Each day, he trained hard, preparing for the day he could strike back against the aliens. His heart burned with a desire for freedom, not just for himself, but for everyone. But on this day, something unusual happened that would change his life forever. As Ethan and his team moved through the dark alleys of a ruined city, they spotted a commotion ahead. A group of aliens, dressed in their metallic armor, was shouting. Curiosity piqued. Ethan and his team crept closer. Peeking around a corner, he saw something that made his heart race. A young alien girl was cornered by the guards. She was small and delicate, with shimmering green skin that glowed faintly in the dim light. Ethan's heart ached for her. She was not just an alien. She was a person, trapped and terrified. Her eyes were wide with fear, yet there was also a flicker of hope, a silent plea for help. The guards laughed, enjoying their power over her. In that moment, Ethan knew he had to act. "Let's go," he whispered to his team. They moved swiftly, adrenaline pumping through their veins. Ethan felt a mixture of fear and excitement. He had never faced aliens so closely before, but he could not stand by and watch this girl suffer. As they approached, the guards didn't notice them at first. Ethan raised his hand, signaling for his friends to get ready. With a sudden rush, they charged at the guards, shouting to distract them. The guards turned, eyes wide with surprise. A fight broke out. Ethan felt the thrill of battle as he swung his weapon, taking down one guard after another. In the chaos, Ethan spotted the girl. She was still standing there, frozen in fear. "Come on," he yelled, waving her over. She blinked, then took a hesitant step toward him. Just as Ethan reached for her hand, a guard lunged at them from behind. With quick reflexes, Ethan spun around and knocked the guard to the ground. "Now," he shouted, grabbing the girl's hand. Together, they ran, dodging the remaining guards. Ethan's heart raced as they burst through the alley and into the open street. The world outside was chaotic, but they were free, at least for now. Breathless and trembling, Ethan looked at the girl. "Are you okay?" he asked. Her green eyes met his, filled with gratitude. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice trembling. Ethan felt a warmth spread through him. He had saved someone today, and it felt incredible. "I'm Ethan," he said, offering a smile. "What's your name?" "Zara," she replied softly. In that moment, as they stood together amidst the chaos, a bond began to form. They were two souls, one human and one alien, united by a shared experience of fear and hope. Little did they know that this encounter would change their lives forever. The rescue. Ethan stood in the middle of the ruined street, still holding Zara's hand. The chaos of the recent fight surrounded them, but he felt a strange calm. He had saved this alien girl, and her gratitude shone in her bright green eyes. But the danger was far from over. The sounds of alarms blared, and the shouts of the alien guards echoed through the air. They had to move quickly. "Come on, we need to find a safe place," Ethan urged, pulling Zara along. They dashed down narrow alleyways, trying to avoid the attention of the guards. Each step echoed with a mix of fear and adrenaline. Ethan's heart raced, not just from the thrill of escape, but from the responsibility of keeping Zara safe. As they ran, Ethan's mind raced with thoughts. Who was Zara? Why was she being chased? He could see that she was terrified, but also determined. She kept up with him, her small frame surprisingly agile. "Where do we go?" Zara asked, glancing around. "There's a rebel base not far from here." "They'll help us," Ethan replied, scanning the area for any signs of danger. Just stay close to me. He could feel the urgency building inside him. The alien guards would not give up easily. They were ruthless and relentless in their pursuit. After several tense minutes of running, Ethan spotted an old, abandoned building that looked safe enough. "In there," he shouted, leading Zara inside. The dark, dusty room was filled with broken furniture and cobwebs, but it was quiet. Ethan quickly shut the door behind them and pressed his ear against it, listening for any signs of the guards. "Are we safe?" Zara whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan turned to her and nodded. "For now. But we need to keep moving." He took a moment to catch his breath, his heart still pounding. "What were those guards doing to you?" he asked, wanting to understand her story. Zara looked down, her face clouded with sadness. "I was a slave," she said softly. "I escaped from a mining camp where they forced me to work. I didn't want to go back." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I thought I was free. Until they found me." Ethan felt a surge of anger. "You shouldn't have to live like that." "No one should." Zora looked at him, a flicker of hope returning to her eyes. "You really care about me, don't you?" she asked. "Of course," Ethan replied, feeling a warmth spread in his chest. "You deserve freedom and a chance to live your life." Just then, a loud crash echoed from outside. The guards had found them. Ethan's heart dropped as he realized they had to act fast. "Come on. We have to find another way out," he said, pulling Zara along as they rushed deeper into the building. They navigated through dark hallways, Ethan leading the way. The sound of footsteps grew louder behind them, echoing in the silence. Suddenly, they came to a stairwell leading to the roof. "Up here," Ethan shouted. They raced up the stairs, their footsteps pounding against the metal. When they reached the roof, the view was breathtaking, but there was no time to admire it. "We need to jump to the next building," Ethan said, looking at the gap. Zara's eyes widened in fear. "I can't," she gasped. "What if we fall?" Ethan turned to her, his expression firm but reassuring. "Trust me, I'll be right there with you. We can do this together." He took a step back, gauging the distance. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. With that, he leaped across the gap, landing safely on the other side. He turned back, reaching out his hand. "Come on, Zara. You can do it." She took a deep breath, her fear transforming into determination. With a burst of courage, Zara jumped, and Ethan caught her hand, pulling her up safely. They stood together on the rooftop, panting and exhilarated. "We did it," Zara exclaimed, her face lighting up with joy. But their victory was short-lived. The alien guards had followed them onto the roof, their faces twisted in rage. "Get them," one of the guards shouted. Ethan and Zara exchanged worried glances. They were not safe yet, but they were determined to fight for their freedom. With their backs against the wall, they prepared for what was coming next. Together, they would face whatever dangers awaited them. The escape. Ethan and Zara stood on the rooftop, heartbeats racing as the alien guards closed in. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the city below. Ethan's mind raced with thoughts of escape. They had no time to lose. The guards shouted and pointed, their voices filled with anger. "Zara, we need to get down from here," Ethan urged, looking for a way out. He scanned the roof for possible escape routes. There was a fire escape ladder at the far end, but it was a distance away. "Follow me." They sprinted towards the ladder, dodging the guards who were now scrambling onto the roof. Ethan could hear the sound of heavy boots thundering behind them. He reached the ladder first and glanced back at Zara. "Hurry." Zara was right behind him, her face a mix of fear and determination. She climbed the ladder quickly, her small hands gripping the metal tightly. Ethan followed closely, keeping an eye on the approaching guards. As Zara reached the bottom, she turned to help Ethan down. Once they were both on the ground, they dashed into a narrow alley. The air was thick with dust, and the smell of decay filled their lungs. Ethan felt the adrenaline pumping through his veins as they ran, the sound of their footsteps echoing off the walls. "Which way?" Zara asked, glancing around nervously. Ethan didn't know. He had to think fast. "Left. Let's go left," he shouted, pulling her with him. They turned down the alley, hoping it would lead them to safety. As they ran, Ethan kept his eyes peeled for any signs of the rebellion. They needed to find shelter and help quickly. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind them. The guards were gaining on them, shouting orders. Ethan's heart raced even faster. "We have to find a way to lose them." They turned another corner and found themselves in a crowded marketplace. People rushed around them, oblivious to the danger. Ethan grabbed Zora's hand tighter. "Stay close," he instructed. They weaved through the crowd, trying to blend in. "Over there," Zora pointed to a small shop that looked abandoned. Ethan nodded and led her inside. The shop was dark and dusty, filled with old furniture and broken items. They crouched down behind a pile of crates, trying to catch their breath. "Do you think they saw us?" Zara whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Ethan replied, peering through a crack between the crates. He could see the guards searching the marketplace, their faces full of anger. "We have to stay quiet." Minutes felt like hours as they waited, the sound of the guards' voices growing fainter. Finally, Ethan glanced at Zara. "I think they've left," he said. "But we can't stay here for long. We need to find a way to the rebel base." Zara nodded, determination returning to her eyes. "What's our plan?" Ethan thought for a moment. "We'll stick to the alleys and avoid the main roads. If we can get to the edge of the city, we'll find a way to reach the base." They quietly made their way out of the shop, peering around to ensure the coast was clear. The marketplace was still bustling, but the guards seemed to have moved on. "Now," Ethan whispered, leading Zora out of the shop and back into the maze of alleyways. They moved quickly but carefully, staying low and hidden. As they navigated through the narrow paths, Ethan felt a growing bond with Zora. She was brave, and her spirit inspired him. "You're strong, Zora," he said, trying to lift her spirits. "We'll make it through this." "Thank you, Ethan," she replied, a soft smile breaking through her worry. Just as they turned a corner, they heard voices again, this time closer. The guards were back, and they were searching the alley. Panic surged through Ethan as he grabbed Zora's hand. "This way." They ducked into another alley, moving quickly as the guards shouted behind them. With every step, Ethan's heart raced. They had to escape, and failure was not an option. Suddenly, they reached a dead end. A high wall loomed in front of them, blocking their path. Ethan cursed under his breath, desperation creeping in. "We can't give up," he shouted, turning to Zora. "Can you climb?" "I think so," she replied, eyes wide with fear. "Okay, I'll boost you up. Then I'll follow," he said, positioning himself against the wall. Zara took a deep breath and nodded. Ethan crouched down, and with all his strength, he lifted Zora. She grabbed onto the top of the wall, pulling herself up. Ethan watched as she struggled for a moment but finally found her footing. "Now help me," Ethan called. Zara reached down, grabbing his hand. With her help, he climbed up. Together, they sat on the edge, looking down at the alley below. "We did it," Zora exclaimed, a bright smile on her face. "Now let's get down safely," Ethan said, feeling a surge of hope. They jumped down to the other side, landing quietly in a hidden area, the sanctuary. After escaping from the guards, Ethan and Zara found themselves in a quiet part of the city. The streets were narrow and lined with crumbling buildings, but there was an unusual stillness in the air. They walked cautiously, aware that danger could lurk around any corner. Ethan could see that Zara was still shaken from their close call, and he wanted to reassure her. "Just a little farther," he said softly, holding her hand tightly. "We're almost to the rebel base." Zara nodded but didn't say anything. Her green skin glimmered in the fading light, and Ethan couldn't help but admire her strength. She had come so far, and now they were about to find safety together. As they walked, Ethan recalled the stories he had heard about the rebel base. Hidden beneath an old factory, it was a place where humans gathered to fight against their alien oppressors. He had never been there, but he had faith in its existence. The thought of finding other rebels filled him with hope. Finally, they arrived at a dilapidated building at the end of a dark alley. A rusty sign hung over the entrance, barely visible through the grime. "This is it," Ethan said, glancing at Zara. "We're home." They stepped inside cautiously. The air was cool and smelled of old metal and oil. The interior was dimly lit, with flickering lights hanging from the ceiling. A few people milled about, their expressions serious as they discussed plans for the rebellion. Ethan could feel the tension in the air, but there was also a sense of camaraderie. "Ethan," a familiar voice called out. It was Maya, a fellow rebel and Ethan's friend. She rushed over, her face lighting up when she saw him. "You made it back. I was worried." Ethan smiled at her. "I found someone," he said, gesturing to Zara. Maya's eyes widened in surprise. "An alien? Here." Zara took a step back, unsure of how the rebels would react. "It's okay," Ethan reassured her, sensing her fear. "They will help you." Maya studied Zara for a moment before nodding. "If Ethan trusts you, then I trust you too," she said, extending her hand. "Welcome to the rebellion." Zara hesitated, but then took Maya's hand. "Thank you," she said softly, relief washing over her. As they moved deeper into the base, Ethan showed Zara around. The walls were lined with maps and photos of past battles. Rebel fighters were gathered in groups, discussing strategies and planning their next moves. The atmosphere was charged with determination. "Is this really how you fight back?" Zara asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. "I've only ever seen aliens in power." Ethan nodded. "We have to fight for our freedom. We can't let them control us forever." He could see the admiration in Zara's eyes, and it made him feel proud. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the base, and everyone froze. "What was that?" Zara whispered, her body tensing. "Stay close," Ethan said, instinctively moving in front of her. He turned to Maya. "What's going on?" Maya's expression turned serious. "It could be the aliens. They know we're here." Ethan's heart raced. "We need to prepare for an attack." As the rebels sprang into action, Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. He looked at Zara, who was trying to remain calm but could not hide the fear in her eyes. "We'll be okay," he promised her. "Just stay with me." They moved to a secure area where weapons were stored. Ethan grabbed a blaster and handed Zara a small sidearm. "This is just in case. You don't have to use it, but you should know how to hold it." Zara took the weapon, her hands trembling slightly. "I don't know how to fight," she admitted, looking uncertain. Ethan looked her in the eye, determination burning in his own. "You're stronger than you think. Just remember what we did to escape. You can do this." Zara nodded, her confidence growing. "Okay, I'll try." As they prepared for the worst, Ethan felt a sense of unity among the rebels. They were all in this fight together, and together they would face whatever came next. In that moment, Ethan realized that he and Zara were not just surviving. They were part of something bigger. And with that thought, he felt hope stir within him. They had found a sanctuary, a place where they could stand against their enemies. Together, they would fight for their freedom, for each other, and for a future where no one would be a slave again. The revelation. The atmosphere in the rebel base was tense. Ethan and Zara stood shoulder to shoulder, surrounded by fellow fighters who were busy preparing for the imminent threat. The loud bang they had heard moments ago had sent waves of anxiety through everyone. Ethan felt a heavy weight in his chest as he watched the rebels work, their faces determined yet strained. "Maya, what's happening?" Ethan asked, his voice steady despite his rising fear. Maya looked at him with serious eyes. We received word that the aliens are coming to raid this place. We need to be ready for anything. Ethan turned to Zara, who was gripping her weapon tightly, her green skin glowing faintly under the dim lights. "Stay close to me," he said softly. "I will," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. As the rebels gathered, Maya called everyone to attention. "Listen up. We need to fortify our position. If the aliens attack, we'll need to hold them off long enough for everyone to escape." Ethan nodded, feeling the urgency of the situation. He looked at Zara, who seemed lost in thought. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "I'm just thinking," she said, her brow furrowed, "about what this all means. I've always been told that humans are the enemy, but you're fighting for something good." Ethan smiled gently. "Not all aliens are bad, and not all humans are good. It's complicated." Suddenly, the ground shook violently, and alarms blared throughout the base. "They're here," someone shouted. Panic spread like wildfire. "Take your positions," Maya yelled, her voice cutting through the chaos. Ethan felt adrenaline surge through him as he and Zara rushed to a window. Looking outside, Ethan saw alien ships descending from the sky, their metallic forms glistening ominously in the light. He turned to Zara, who was staring wide-eyed at the scene. "Get ready," he said, gripping his blaster tightly. The first wave of guards burst through the entrance, their weapons drawn. The rebels opened fire, and chaos erupted in the base. Ethan fought alongside his comrades, his heart pounding in his chest. He moved quickly, dodging laser blasts and returning fire with precision. In the midst of the battle, Ethan caught a glimpse of Zara. She was standing her ground, her small frame steady as she aimed her weapon. "That's it," he thought, pride swelling in his chest. She was becoming a warrior. Suddenly, an alien guard charged toward Zara, his weapon raised. Without thinking, Ethan sprinted forward. "Zara, look out," he shouted. But in that split second, something incredible happened. As the alien lunged, Zara raised her weapon and fired, hitting the guard squarely in the chest. The guard collapsed, and Zara stood frozen in disbelief, her eyes wide. "You did it," Ethan exclaimed, rushing to her side. "I didn't know I could do that," she said, her voice shaky but filled with awe. Before Ethan could respond, another wave of guards burst into the room. The rebels fought fiercely, but the aliens were relentless. Ethan felt the weight of the battle pressing down on them. Just then, he noticed something strange, a figure moving toward the chaos. It was different from the guards, taller and more imposing. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as the figure came into view. It was a high-ranking alien officer, his armor shining with authority. "Stop," the officer commanded, his voice booming. "This ends now." Ethan felt a surge of fear and anger. "Who do you think you are?" he shouted back. The officer turned his gaze to Ethan, and then to Zara, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. "You," he exclaimed, pointing. "You are the one who helped her escape." Zara's eyes widened, and she stepped forward, confusion written all over her face. "What do you mean?" she asked. The officer's expression softened slightly. "You do not know who you are, do you?" Ethan frowned, feeling the tension in the air shift. "What are you talking about?" "I will tell you everything," the officer said, his voice calm amid the chaos. "But first, we need to stop this fight." The battle continued to rage around them. But in that moment, Ethan and Zara exchanged a look filled with uncertainty. What revelation could this officer possibly hold? What secrets lay buried in Zara's past? As the chaos swirled around them, the true battle was about to begin. The battle for knowledge, identity, and the fate of both humans and aliens. The stakes had never been higher. The confrontation. The chaos of the battle seemed to fade into the background as Ethan and Zara focused on the alien officer standing before them. His imposing figure loomed large, and the tension in the room grew thicker with every passing second. The sounds of blaster fire and shouting faded, replaced by a strange silence as the rebels and guards paused to watch the unfolding drama. "What do you know about me?" Zara asked, her voice steady but filled with confusion. Ethan could see the determination in her eyes, but he could also sense her fear. The officer stepped forward, his gaze piercing through the haze of battle. "I know more than you can imagine," he replied, his voice deep and commanding. "You are not just any alien. You are part of a lineage that connects our worlds." Ethan glanced at Zara, bewilderment crossing his face. "What does he mean?" he asked. Zara shook her head, trying to process the information. "I don't understand," she murmured. "What lineage? I was just a slave." The officer took a deep breath, his expression softening. "You were captured and forced into servitude, yes. But you come from a long line of leaders who once united our peoples. Your ancestors sought peace, but that peace was shattered." Ethan felt a spark of hope ignite within him. "So you're saying Zara has the power to change things?" The officer nodded gravely. "Yes. If she embraces her true identity, she can be a bridge between our worlds. But first, she must confront the truth." Zara stood tall, her fists clenched at her sides. "And what truth is that?" she demanded. "The truth of your heritage," the officer replied, stepping even closer. "You are the daughter of a powerful leader who once fought for harmony between our races. Your return to power could inspire others to join the cause." Ethan's heart raced. This was more than just a battle for survival. It was a chance to change the course of history. "Zara, you have to believe in yourself," he urged, looking into her eyes. "You can do this." The officer turned to the rebels, who had gathered around, listening intently. "This is our chance to unite. If we can bring Zara back to her rightful place, we can end this war and find peace." But before anyone could respond, the alien guards regained their focus. "Enough of this," one of them shouted, raising his weapon. "You will not take her." Chaos erupted again as the guards charged forward. Ethan's instincts kicked in, and he positioned himself between Zara and the approaching threat. "We won't let them take you," he shouted. Zara took a step forward, her expression fierce. "I will not go back to being a slave," she declared. "I will fight for my freedom, for our freedom." With renewed determination, the rebels rallied behind her. Maya grabbed a weapon and joined Ethan's side, ready to defend their newfound ally. "We stand with you, Zara," she shouted. The officer raised his hand, trying to calm the situation. "Everyone, listen. We need to work together. If we can unite our strength, we can defeat them." Ethan nodded, adrenaline coursing through him. "Let's show them what we're made of," he shouted, leading the charge. Zara followed closely behind, her fear replaced by courage. As the two sides clashed, Ethan felt a rush of power. The rebels fought valiantly, pushing back against the alien guards with fierce resolve. Blaster fire lit up the room, and the air was filled with the sounds of battle. Zara fought beside Ethan, her skills growing stronger with each passing moment. She moved with grace, her aim precise and confident. Ethan couldn't help but admire her. She was no longer just a scared alien. She was a warrior. In the midst of the fight, Ethan caught the alien officer's eye. "You said Zara can bring peace. How? Her presence alone can inspire the others." The officer shouted back. "If she can lead them, they will follow, but she must be strong." Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of those words. They needed Zara to embrace her destiny, to become the leader she was meant to be. Just then, the officer stepped forward, confronting the alien guards with unwavering authority. "You fight for a lost cause," he shouted. "Join us or face the consequences." Ethan watched as the tide began to shift. The guards hesitated, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. "Zara," Ethan called, urgency in his voice. "Now is your time. Show them who you are." With a fierce look in her eyes, Zara stepped forward, her voice clear and powerful. "I am Zara. I refuse to be a pawn in this war. We can change the fate of our worlds." As her words rang out, a wave of energy pulsed through the room. The rebels cheered, rallying around her. Ethan felt hope swell within him. This was the moment they had been waiting for, a chance to confront their enemies, to confront the truth, and to forge a new future. Together, they would fight not just for survival, but for a chance at peace. The aftermath. The battle raged on for what felt like hours, but as the dust settled, a strange calmness fell over the rebel base. The once chaotic room was now filled with the aftermath of conflict. Wounded fighters lay on the floor, while others tended to them, bandaging cuts and bruises. The air was heavy with the smell of smoke and sweat, a testament to the fierce struggle they had just endured. Ethan stood at the center of the room, his heart racing. Zara was by his side, her face flushed with adrenaline and determination. They had fought bravely, and the tide had turned in their favor. The alien guards, once powerful and intimidating, now retreated in confusion. The officer's words had sparked something deep within the rebels, igniting a fire that could not be extinguished. "Is everyone okay?" Maya shouted, her voice breaking through the noise. She moved from one injured rebel to another, ensuring they were being taken care of. Ethan felt a wave of gratitude for her leadership. Zara looked around, her expression a mixture of disbelief and relief. "We did it," she said, still trying to grasp the reality of their victory. "I can't believe we actually fought them off." Ethan nodded, feeling a swell of pride. "You were amazing, Zora. You inspired everyone." Just then, the alien officer stepped forward, his armor slightly scuffed, but his demeanor calm. "You fought bravely," he said to the gathered rebels. "Today, you have shown that unity can overcome even the greatest of fears." A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. Ethan could see the glimmer of hope in their eyes, a light that had been dimmed for too long. "What will happen next?" he asked, stepping closer to the officer. The officer took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "We must regroup and prepare for the next phase. The leaders of the alien forces will not take this defeat lightly. They will come back stronger." Zara crossed her arms, her gaze fierce. "Then we need to prepare too. We cannot let fear control us any longer." "Exactly," the officer replied, nodding approvingly. "If we can harness your strength and bravery, we can rally more supporters to our cause. But first, we must heal." Ethan turned to Zara. "What do you want to do now?" he asked. She thought for a moment, glancing around at the injured rebels. "I want to help them," she replied, determination in her voice. "They fought for me, for us. It's time I give back." Ethan smiled, his admiration for her growing stronger. "Let's do it together." They moved through the base, assisting where they could. Ethan helped to clean wounds while Zara comforted the injured, her presence soothing. The rebels responded to her warmth, their spirits lifting under her care. As the sun began to set outside, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, the atmosphere within the base shifted. The once quiet murmurs turned into lively conversations about their future. Hope filled the air, and laughter echoed in the hallways as people shared stories of bravery and strength. Later that evening, a meeting was called to discuss their next steps. The rebels gathered around a large table, the tension replaced with determination. Zara stood at the head of the table, her confidence radiating. "We have a chance to change everything," she said, her voice steady. "We can unite our people and bring peace back to our worlds." The room filled with cheers. Ethan felt a sense of pride swell within him. This was the moment he had hoped for, a true leader rising from the ashes of conflict. The alien officer chimed in. "Together, we can build alliances with other factions and strengthen our forces. We have a real chance to end this war." As the discussions continued late into the night, Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging. They were no longer just a group of rebels. They were a family, united by a shared purpose. When the meeting finally adjourned, Ethan and Zara stepped outside, breathing in the cool night air. "Look at the stars," Zara said, pointing upwards. They seem so much brighter now. Ethan nodded, a smile on his face. It's a new beginning. As they stood side by side, watching the stars twinkle above, they both knew that the journey ahead would be difficult. But with courage, unity, and hope, they were ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. Together, they would fight for a better future, not just for themselves, but for all who longed for peace. The choice. The sun rose slowly over the rebel base, casting a warm golden light through the broken windows. It was a new day, and with it came new possibilities. As the sounds of the morning began to stir, Zara and Ethan sat outside, reflecting on everything that had happened. The air was fresh, filled with hope, but also uncertainty. Zara picked at the grass, her mind racing. "We've won a battle, but the war isn't over," she said softly. "What if the aliens come back stronger?" Ethan turned to her, concern etched on his face. "We have to be ready. We need to gather more support and prepare ourselves for whatever they throw at us next." Zara nodded, but there was a shadow of doubt in her eyes. "I just feel like there's so much at stake now. I never wanted to be a leader, but I know I can't back down." "You're not alone in this," Ethan reminded her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We're all in this together. The rebels believe in you." Just then, Maya approached, her expression serious. "We need to talk," she said, her voice firm. "The officer has called a meeting to discuss our next steps." Zara stood up, determination replacing her doubt. "Let's go. We need to figure out our plan." Inside the base, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. The rebels gathered around the large table once more, eager to hear what the officer had to say. He stood at the front, his posture commanding respect. "Thank you all for being here," he began. "We face a crucial decision today. We can either prepare for a defensive strategy or take the fight to the aliens and seek to reclaim territories that have been lost." A murmur swept through the room. Some rebels nodded in agreement with the officer, while others looked concerned. "We have already suffered many losses," one rebel spoke up. "Is it wise to attack? What if we lose more?" Zara felt a weight on her shoulders as everyone turned to her. She took a deep breath, remembering the strength she had shown in the battle. "I believe we need to take a chance," she said, her voice steady. "We can't live in fear. If we wait too long, the aliens will regroup and come at us again. We must show them we are united and strong." Ethan watched her with admiration as the room filled with murmurs of agreement. "But what if we fail?" someone else asked, uncertainty creeping back into the crowd. Zara raised her hand for silence. "Failure is a part of fighting for what we believe in. We have to stand up for our freedom. I know the risks, but I believe in us. Together, we are stronger." The officer nodded, impressed by her courage. "Zara is right. This is our chance to make a difference. We will not just fight for survival. We will fight for our future." As the meeting continued, Ethan felt a mixture of excitement and fear. The choice they were about to make would change everything. But deep down, he trusted Zora's instincts. She was becoming a true leader. After the meeting, as the rebels began to prepare for their mission, Ethan found Zora sitting alone outside, lost in thought. He joined her, sitting down beside her. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. "I'm just thinking about the decision we made," she replied, her eyes staring at the horizon. "It's a huge risk. What if it all goes wrong?" Ethan took her hand, squeezing it tightly. "No matter what happens, we'll face it together. You've already shown how strong you are. You can lead us." Zora looked at him, searching for reassurance. "What if I'm not cut out for this? What if I let everyone down?" "You won't," he said firmly. "You've already inspired so many. You are more than just a fighter. You're a symbol of hope for everyone here." Zara took a deep breath, her resolve strengthening. "You're right. I have to believe in myself." As they sat together, watching the sun climb higher in the sky, Zara realized that this was her choice to make. She could either let fear control her or embrace her destiny. With Ethan by her side, and the support of the rebels, she knew she had the strength to face whatever lay ahead. This was not just a battle for survival, it was a fight for their future. And she was ready to lead them into the unknown, ready to make a choice that could change everything. The Union. The day of the mission had arrived, and the rebel base was alive with energy and determination. Zara stood at the forefront, flanked by Ethan and Maya. They had spent the last few days preparing, gathering supplies, and strategizing. Now the moment of truth had come. They were not just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for a future where humans and aliens could coexist. As the sun rose, casting a warm glow over the base, Zara felt a surge of confidence. "We are united," she declared to the gathered rebels. "Together, we can take back what is ours and show the aliens that we will not be oppressed." The rebels cheered, their spirits high. They had faced many challenges, but this felt different. This was a chance to change everything. Ethan squeezed Zora's hand, and she looked at him, feeling reassured by his presence. The officer stood beside them, his armor gleaming in the morning light. "Today, we will unite our forces," he said, his voice strong. "We have allies waiting for us in the neighboring territories. If we can reach them, we can form a larger coalition to fight against the aliens." Zara nodded, her determination growing. "We must act quickly. If we wait too long, we risk losing everything we fought for." With that, they gathered their supplies and set out, leaving the safety of the base behind. As they marched through the forest, the air buzzed with anticipation. The path was challenging, but the rebels pushed forward, fueled by hope. After hours of trekking, they arrived at a clearing where a group of alien rebels awaited them. These were the fighters who had also suffered under the oppressive regime. Zara stepped forward, her heart racing. This was a pivotal moment. "Thank you for joining us," she called out, her voice clear. "Together, we can create a force that cannot be ignored. We stand not just as rebels, but as allies fighting for freedom." The alien leader, a tall figure with striking blue skin, stepped forward. "We have heard of your bravery," he said, his tone serious but filled with respect. "If we unite, we can turn the tide of this war, but we must trust each other." Zara nodded, understanding the weight of his words. "Trust is the foundation of our alliance. We must work together as one." As the two groups began to mingle, Ethan watched with pride. The unity between humans and aliens felt powerful. They shared stories, strategies, and laughter, breaking down barriers that had once seemed impossible. Just then, a loud alarm echoed through the clearing. The sky darkened as an alien ship approached, casting a shadow over the united group. The rebels quickly took their positions, ready for a fight. "We can't let them see us unprepared," Maya shouted. "Everyone, ready your weapons." Zara's heart raced. This was a test of their newfound alliance. "We fight together," she yelled, raising her weapon high. As the ship landed, alien guards poured out, weapons drawn. The tension in the air was palpable, but instead of fear, Zara felt a sense of purpose. She glanced at Ethan and the alien leader, and they nodded in unison. "On my mark," Zara shouted, her voice steady. "We charged together." As she led the charge, she felt the strength of her allies behind her. They fought side by side, humans and aliens united in their cause. The battle was fierce, but the bond they had formed gave them an advantage. Ethan fought alongside Zara, his heart pounding. "We can do this," he shouted over the noise of the battle. "Stay together." Zara felt the energy of their unity surging through her. Each victory, each step forward, fueled her determination. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for a new beginning. As the battle raged on, Zara realized that this was the moment they had all been waiting for. This union was not just about strength in numbers. It was about hope, trust, and the possibility of a brighter future. When the dust finally settled, the alien guards had retreated, and the clearing was filled with cheers. Zara stood tall, her heart swelling with pride. They had done it together. They had fought as one. In that moment, she understood that the union they had formed was more than just a strategy. It was a promise to fight for each other, to stand together, and to build a future where humans and aliens could live side by side. With renewed determination, Zara looked at her allies, both human and alien. "This is just the beginning," she said, her voice filled with hope. "Together, we will change our worlds forever."